I want to tell you a story about a man named Thomas, a man most people would have walked past without ever looking twice. But he changed everything. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon. The kind of rain that isn't just water, it's ice and wind. And the kind of gray that makes the world feel heavy. I was downtown, soaked and miserable, when I ducked into the Allen Street Art Gallery to escape the storm. Now, if you've never been in that place, let me paint a picture for you. It's all clean white walls, shining lights, soft classical music playing in the background. Everyone inside is dressed like they stepped out of a fashion magazine. There's wine, tiny crackers, and lots of nodding at things on the wall that don't always make sense to people like me, but still, I like it. It's peaceful, safe. It feels like a different world. I was standing in front of a piece called Fragmented Whispers, trying to figure out if it was supposed to be a bird or a broken chair, when suddenly there was a shift in the room. You know that feeling when something unexpected happens and people get tense, like air gets sucked out of the space? I turned and saw him, a man, dripping wet, standing near the entrance. His coat was torn, soaked through, and clung to his thin frame. His shoes were worn down to the soles. He looked like he hadn't had a good meal, or a warm place to sleep, in a long time. His beard was scruffy, eyes tired, but there was something in his hands. He was holding a wrapped object, carefully, like it was a newborn baby. People around me froze. Some backed away. I heard murmurs. Who let him in? This is not the place for people like that. One woman held her purse a little tighter. A man beside me whispered something cruel under his breath. Thomas didn't seem to hear it, or maybe he did, but he'd heard worse. He just looked around the gallery, slowly, like he was studying each painting, as if he was trying to understand why they were good enough to be there. Then, with careful fingers, he unwrapped his bundle. It was a painting. It wasn't on canvas, but on a piece of old plywood. The frame was cracked and uneven. But the moment I saw it, I felt something stir inside me. It was raw. It was loud. Emotional. The colors screamed and whispered all at once. Deep. Reds, aching blues, angry yellows that seemed to burn through the board. It wasn't perfect, not in a technical sense. But it was real. It looked like someone had poured every ounce of their pain and hope into it. Security came over quickly. The gallery owner, a woman named Elaine, someone known in the city for having a sharp eye and a sharper tongue, was not pleased. She looked at him like he had dragged mud onto her white carpet. "This is not a public shelter," she said. "You need to leave, sir." Thomas didn't argue. He didn't shout or ask for anything. He simply looked at her and said, "Art saved me. I thought maybe it could live here too." And then he turned and walked back out into the rain. No one moved. No one stopped him. Except me. I don't know what came over me, but I couldn't let him go. I ran outside, asked him to wait. We stood under the awning of a closed coffee shop, his painting between us getting splashed with rain. I asked his name. "Thomas," he said. "Thomas Gray." We sat down on the curb and talked. I learned that he used to work in construction, had a good job, a wife, even a little house in the suburbs. But a fall from scaffolding broke his back. He was in the hospital for weeks. Bills piled up. His wife left. He couldn't find steady work with his injury. Little by little, he lost everything. But somewhere along that path of broken pieces, he found paint. At first, he did it to quiet the noise in his mind. Then he realized he could tell stories through colors, stories he didn't know how to speak aloud. "I paint because the world forgets people like me," he said. "But colors, they don't forget." I took a photo of his painting and posted it online that night, along with his story. I didn't think much would come of it. Maybe a few likes. Maybe someone would want to buy it for a few bucks to help him out. But by morning, the post had blown up. Thousands of shares. Comments from artists, teachers, therapists, even celebrities. People said they cried looking at his painting. They said it felt like their pain too, like someone had painted their own loneliness and heartbreak. Then something incredible happened. Elaine, the gallery owner, called me. She apologized. Said she didn't see the full picture that day. She invited Thomas back, offered to feature his work in a small showing. I asked Thomas what he thought. He was quiet for a long time, then said, "I'll go. Not for me, for the art." The night of the showing, the gallery was packed. Not just art people, but regular folks, families, teachers, even some who'd been homeless themselves. The same room that had rejected him was now full of eyes staring in awe at his work. He had 3 pieces on display, all painted on found wood, all full of fire and feeling. And then, someone made an offer, a private collector. Quiet, respectful. She bought his original painting, the one he had carried in that rainy day, for $2 million. There was silence. You could hear a pin drop. I looked at Thomas. His hands were shaking. He stared at the check, then at the painting, and then he cried. Quietly, not for attention, just honest, overwhelming tears. He didn't speak much that night, just said one thing to the crowd. "I thought I was invisible. Thank you for seeing me." Today, Thomas lives in a small apartment on the edge of the city. It's nothing fancy, just a quiet place with creaky floors, a window that lets in the morning light, and walls now covered in his own art. He turned the spare bedroom into a little studio where he paints every day, sometimes through the night when memories won't let him sleep. There's always music playing, old jazz records, soft and slow, and the smell of paint and coffee lingers in the air like a second skin. He's created dozens of new pieces since that night at the gallery. Each one tells a story, some of pain, others of healing. He paints the faces of people he met on the streets. He paints the shadows of loneliness and the glimmers of hope that still shine through. He paints his younger self, sometimes lost, sometimes smiling, like he found his way home again. But what moves me the most is what he does with what he's earned. Thomas didn't take that money and disappear. He didn't buy a mansion or a fancy car. Instead, he gave. He donates quietly, without making a big deal of it. He gives to shelters. The same ones that turned him away when they were full. The same ones that gave him a warm bed on freezing nights when they could. He funds art programs in schools that can't afford supplies. Kids who never even thought they could be artists are now painting with real brushes, on real canvases, because of him. And more than that, Thomas gives his time. He visits schools, community centers, even juvenile detention facilities. He walks in with that same quiet energy, not trying to impress anyone, just speaking from the heart. He tells them about falling, about being forgotten, about how it feels when no one looks you in the eye anymore. And then he tells them about art, about how colors helped him find his voice again, about how the world might forget your name, but if you pour your truth into something, into a painting, a poem, a song, someone somewhere will hear it. He tells them, you don't need permission to create. You just need courage. And those kids listen. You can see it in their eyes. They believe him. Because he's not just talking. He's living proof. Sometimes, on quiet afternoons, I walk past the Allen Street Gallery, and I see people standing in front of that painting. The very one Thomas carried in from the rain. The one that nearly got him kicked out. Now it hangs under a soft spotlight with a golden frame and a small plaque that reads, Untitled, Thomas Gray. They stand there in silence, studying it. Some lean in close, trying to understand what the colors are saying. Others just stare, moved by something they can't quite explain. And I smile. Because I remember. I remember the way people looked at him that day, with judgment, with disgust. I remember how they saw him as less than, as someone who didn't belong. And now, his work is the centerpiece. Now he belongs more than any of them ever did. It reminds me that beauty doesn't always come in perfect frames. It doesn't wear expensive clothes or speak in the right accent. Sometimes beauty is messy. It's raw. It's brave. Sometimes it walks in from the storm, cold, soaking wet, and carrying everything it has left in this world under its arm. And if we're lucky, if we're really paying attention, we don't just witness it. We get changed by it.